Now let's talk about the thing that I don't understand, soccer. When I walked into the card shop, I can't tell you how much Prism, when that first Prism soccer came out,
Yeah.
there was 20 boxes sitting in the back. Nobody cared. It was like $70. Now soccer is ridiculous. What happened? Why is soccer, the World Cup's not even happening for a while?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the soccer it was kind of due to explode for a handful of reasons. One, these guys just don't have that many cards, right? So like how many different cards does LeBron James have? 10,000? I mean, I 5,000, right? Like 5,000 different cards. So he's been in the league for 17 years. Yeah, so maybe it's 2,000, right? Like, but there's just a ton of LeBron James cards to be had, just different styles. A guy like Messi really has like 15 cards, I mean, so he just does, and then plus the volume. The basketball cards were made in much bigger volumes. The soccer cards, there's fewer designs, and then they were lower produced. So there's just not that much supply of the soccer stuff. So that made a lot of sense to come up. The other reason it did make sense to come up is like it is the most popular sport globally. You pull up these guys like Instagram pages, Mbappe has got what, 45 million followers? Acuna and Tatis have like what, a million, right? So I mean, like that's a pretty good data point right there. And when we talk about the international market, I think people need to kind of tap the brakes a little bit. Collecting little pictures of men is not like in the DNA of many cultures. It just isn't. I mean, most cards came to fruition in the United States. Like, so it's not like they were around for generations and all the, it's an American thing. It was American cigarettes that really, kicked off the collecting spree, the card collecting spree. So keep in mind, it's like, a kid in France might not think that Mbappe card is that cool. He might think Mbappe's Team Jordan PSG jersey is really cool. He might be like, why did I pay $1,000 that piece of paper? I can go buy 10 jerseys, right? So just everyone needs to cool their jets on thinking that all these, international card markets are going to explode. But there is one market that really matters. It's China. So the reason I know the Chinese collectors are buying soccer cards is because these big clubs, one of the ways they make a lot of money is they tour and they play exhibition games. Okay. There's something called the International Champions Cup, and it was canceled this year, but it tours basically every summer, and they're friendlies, but PSG and Barca and Real Madrid, I mean, all the big teams eventually play in it. Well, I was talking to someone who's kind of in the know and like kind of promoting soccer games. China will pay 3x an appearance fee for someone like PSG than an American stadium will, right? So if you want to bring PSG to your local football stadium, you'll get outbid by 3 times a local stadium in China. So they are that hungry for soccer content that they're paying millions upon millions of dollars to have these teams show up and play friendlies during the off season. So that's real. That is real data, and that's been going on for about 10 years. That's not like a one-off thing that just started happening. So yes, if China's in a market, it means it's a pretty big market. So I think that's a real data trend to follow.
So these soccer cards are going to go crazy in 2022.
You would think, right? And we're going to see the same thing that we saw with Mahomes in the Super Bowls. Like, there's going to be this like run up. Who's going to win? And there's going to be all this speculating on who's going to win it or whatever. And then there's going to be a crash, right? But
like Timo Werner, I've never heard of this guy in my life, and he scored a goal, in the first game, 4 minutes, and now everyone's like, I can't believe I bought him. I'm so happy I bought him, and it's like I've never heard of this guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. And it's all about that speculation. That's the kind of gambling mentality. Now, I will say something that has been fun from the soccer market is, I am now following more of these guys on Instagram, and I'm watching more highlights, and like I've seen an appreciation, right? Like, I mean, we've all watched Messi highlights for years, and Messi is on a different level. So it's not really fair to talk about that. But these other guys are good, right? Like, they're talented. Like, you can actually, like, these guys like Timo, like I'd never heard of, but now I started watching. It's like, yeah, he's good. He's exciting. He's fun to watch. So it's kind of gotten me more into watching the highlights of these guys, and they are super talented. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, look, in terms of the homework, the one thing that's really upsetting me about the modern hobby is these kind of blogs and these YouTube pages, which are kind of talking about all the different cards through the lens of an investment. And I think they do a really good service, but man, they need to be held more accountable about reporting some of these sales prices. You know, I've talked about it a couple times, but I bought 2 Mbappe silvers raw back last summer for $20 a piece.
Wow.
They both came back 10s, and I was like, I'm going to sell one of these. I got, none have been on the market in a while. And so I sent it to Probstein, and it got up to $4,000. Okay. And I knew something funny was going on. I was like, the last time this card sold was like $500, like this. I know the market's hot or whatever, but like, this is just odd. I knew I wasn't getting paid for it. But what was really crazy is that the winning bidder canceled their sale within like 12 hours of winning it, which is really suspicious behavior, right? Like when that happens, and then the second highest bidder doesn't even reply to an offer to pay the price that they were willing to bid, that's really suspicious behavior. So it took me 4 times of listing that card to finally sell it, which is just absurd. And so, one issue is that these blogs and these websites, they all like the leading headline the next day was Mbappe silver sells for $4,000. And I had to take an hour out of my day to reach out to all these guys and that card did not sell. Okay. They already canceled the transaction.
Wow.
Now, Sports Card Investor was very ethical and made a point and talked about it on the next video. They've also gone in there and they allow you to scrub out sales from people with really low feedback so that the data is a little bit cleaner, which I think was really good. But let me tell you something. Most of those other websites, they did not note the fact that card didn't actually sell. And that's really unethical.
That's right. You're talking about the people that do the little sale charts. They're inaccurate. I was thinking about that when you mentioned that the people didn't pay. That makes sense. So they're just basing it off, it went for 4,000. They want the number.
It didn't get paid for. It didn't get paid for. Okay. It didn't get paid for. And so, it makes them look a little suspect, to be honest with you. Right. Like, because they're benefiting off this hype and getting all these views. And maybe they're also the ones dabbling in the market. Because the reason that Mbappe got bid up to that level wasn't to bring up the price of that Mbappe silver. It was to bring up the price of all of his other cards, like all of his random Donruss cards, all the random Mbappes tripled, quadrupled in price as soon as my card sold. So that's what those guys were doing, and we've seen it happen a bunch with the soccer stuff. Like we're seeing it, we've seen it with. Basically, if you go look at eBay completed sales for all these 2014 Prisms, I would bet less than a third have been actually paid for, And so when the Mbappe silver got up to 10,000 on eBay, I was like, well, I'm selling this. I don't like this card more than I like $10,000,
Of course.
Right. Like, I don't think he's going to end up like Messi or Ronaldo. I'll go ahead and say that. I think there's about a 5% chance Mbappe ends up like Messi or Ronaldo. So people paying comparable prices need to get their heads examined. Okay. That's just the way it is. I went on StockX and I sold it for $2,000 less because I didn't want to deal with the bullshit from eBay and getting the card returned. Right. Guess what? All the card's still selling on eBay for $10,000. I still feel like I won having taken $2,000 less because guess what? I got paid. The money hit my PayPal account, So hopefully StockX keeps, advertising cards and keeps promoting cards because that was safe. And the fact that I was willing to take that big of a haircut because I actually wanted to sell the card and not deal with the return, that's very valuable. Yeah, no,
you made your money and kind of got out of it, and it was a win-win. I think that's crazy. I did not realize eBay's return policy until I saw you post about it a couple times. I did not realize it was this aggressive.
It's ridiculous. You can return it. They unilaterally side with the buyer. PC Sports Cards posted this on their story the other day. Like, people are sending the message, like they're documenting in the message on the eBay platform, I'm returning this card because it's now selling for less money than I paid for it. Like, they're not even trying to make up some excuse. They're just saying, I don't want to buy it now because it went down in value. So you'd like to think that there's someone at eBay has some sense of what's going on, because they should look at all the messages and the returns and they'll say, wow, people really are returning these things because they go down in value. That's not fair. especially for it's a graded card. It's not like it was a raw card that had a really bad corner that wasn't disclosed. I mean, I think that's a valid return, but like on a graded card, you should not be able to return it. So that's got to get fixed. And I think either eBay is going to fix it or someone's going to fix it for them, and their card business is going to get cut in half.